Buy or sell coming up in about 10 minutes or so here on the program. Mandatory minicamp underway for the Arizona Cardinals. Seeing a lot of quotes from Jonathan Gannon as we just move closer and closer to the start of football season. And a question that I've been kicking around in my own head, and I asked it in the morning meeting today, because I continue to see stories. I've seen a couple of them. I'll just share 3 of them that I saw today that pushed me into this direction. CBS Sports, they're the source for a couple of these. They did a story of the most underrated NFL players at each position. And there were 2 Cardinals on the list. James Conner at running back, Calais Campbell along the defensive line. There was a story with the best and worst case scenarios for every NFL team. And the worst case scenario for the Arizona Cardinals is that Kyler Murray would struggle, but the team would just finish below 500. But not one of the worst teams in the NFL, just fall short of their expectations. Then I saw a story about Trey Hendrickson and all the landing spots for him, and the Cardinals were on that list, and PFF and all the great grades that they gave the Cardinals group throughout the offseason. Each position ranked super high. The individual players ranked super high. They did their reason for optimism for all 32 teams. The revamped defensive line was what they selected for the Cardinals. So no matter where you turn, there is optimism about this team. And so that led me to this question. Are we, perhaps because we're too close to it, are we selling this team short? And what I mean by that is, are we not as excited for this season as we should be? Are we not putting the right level of expectation on this team for 2025? I don't think there's anybody out there that thinks the Cardinals are going to dethrone the Philadelphia Eagles, are going to be the talk of the NFC all season. But I do think there are expectations around this team being a playoff contender. And you know what? I'm willing to say it. This team is a playoff contender. This team is directly in the middle of the NFC wildcard race. I will go as far as saying this team is in the mix to win the NFC West. And we shouldn't run from that. We should embrace that. We should be excited that the team is good enough on paper, talented enough on paper to have those expectations attached to them. We shouldn't look for reasons for them to not be a playoff contender. We shouldn't look for reasons for why they are going to fail and miss those expectations. We should embrace what this team is. We should tip our cap to the organization over the last couple of years for overhauling this roster and this offseason, putting a huge, massive emphasis on rebuilding a defensive line that needed major surgery. And they did it. They didn't go through the motions. They didn't make just a couple of small tweaks. No. Biggest contract we've seen Monty given out. Veterans in Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell. Draft picks, first round pick, another investment in the defensive line after using one of your first round picks a year ago to invest in the defensive line. This is a front office and an organization that is telling you, we believe in this squad. I think it's now up to us to also believe in this squad, to be critical when they lose games that they're not supposed to, critical if they miss those expectations. But I'm tired of having these conversations and then saying what has become a famous phrase here on the show, all roads lead back to Kyler Murray. I hate doing that. I hate that that's what the Cardinals' entire organization boils down to right now. And so you know what? Today we're putting a stop to it because it's not all about Kyler Murray. This team has made improvements everywhere else on this roster. This team is a more talented team than they were a year ago. Yeah, is a lot of their success going to be dependent on the way the quarterback plays? It's not like he's had a bunch of 2,000-yard seasons in his career and we're asking him to be something he's never been before. Last year he threw for 3,800 yards. He's been a solid to good to sometimes above average quarterback in his career. So you know what? Embrace it. I know there are people out there that will not buy in, that will not accept Kyler as the franchise quarterback until he does it in the postseason. I get it. I'm not asking you to change your tune about Kyler. What I'm asking you to do is to embrace the expectations that are on this team. Have fun. Have fun knowing that you're not, let's pick a team, that you're not the Carolina Panthers, that you're not the Cleveland Browns, that you're not, Jacksonville's a little different. I think they just had a down year last year. You're not the Raiders. Boy, do I not buy the Raiders this year. You're not the Jets. Relish that you're not one of those teams. The Saints. You're not in quarterback purgatory with those teams, not knowing what direction you're going to go in. You have a roster that is ready to compete for the playoffs. You don't think they're going to make it because of Kyler? Fine. But embrace what this team is. This team is a playoff and division contender.
I don't understand the negativity and surrounding this team because we just saw it with the team that won the Super Bowl. What did they do better than anybody, Chris? They ran the football and they played great defense.
Yep.
You have an improved defense and a team that can run the football. As far as I'm concerned, I've watched football my whole life. You play good defense, you run the football, you're a playoff football team.
And again, I'm not saying the Cardinals have no problems. I'm not saying the Cardinals are a perfect team. I'm not saying book the tickets now for the Cardinals to go to the Super Bowl. What I am saying is embrace what this team is. Embrace the work that has been done over the last couple of years to revamp this roster. When you're frustrated about this Cardinals team throughout the summertime before the season begins, remind yourself where this roster was a couple of years ago. Remind yourself where this team was when they fired Cliff and they fired Steve Keim and had to bring in a new GM and a new head coach. And then think about where they are today and embrace that. Embrace that this team, yes, this team should make the playoffs in 2025. And you know what? If you want this franchise to be one of the upper echelon franchises in the NFL, then you have to embrace expectations like this. And not just immediately go, nah, they're not going to do it because Kyler Murray's not a franchise quarterback and yeah, it's not worth it and just it's going to be a waste of a year and it doesn't matter what they do everywhere else because the quarterback stinks. Embrace this organization for what they have done. And by organization, I'm not talking about the guy up at the top. So the guy up at the top's got his fair share of problems. I'm talking about the GM who's overhauled this roster. I'm talking about the coach who's getting the most out of this roster and has put this team in a position to where, yes, we are now talking about a team where the expectations are you need to make the playoffs. That's where great organizations live. That's where the Steelers live every year. That's where the Chiefs live every year. The Bills. That's where the Bengals live now because they have a quarterback. You have a great franchise. The expectation is you find a way to make the playoffs. Steelers haven't had a franchise quarterback. They found a way. Why? Because their expectations of that fan base demand that they are a playoff team.
Would you be more shocked if this team wins 6 football games or if this team makes the playoffs?
I would be more shocked if this team wins 6 football games.
There's your answer. There's your answer to sit back in your chair and say, okay, we have an exciting football team. And I'm not saying, like we said, I'm not saying they're going to play in the NFC Championship. I'm not saying book it. I'm not saying they're the Eagles. I'm not saying they're the Lions or the Vikings or whoever else you want to put in that conversation. But I think they can compete with the Rams for this division.
I think there are fans out there that don't want to embrace the expectations around this team because they do not want to be disappointed. Guess what? You want to be great? Sometimes you're going to be disappointed. Now, last year expecting them to make the playoffs probably set you up for disappointment. They weren't ready then. This year, they're ready. The roster's ready. They're going to sink or swim. And yeah, if you're disappointed, if they don't make the playoffs, you should be. That is going to be what sets this franchise on the right course to demand better.